Hello and welcome to another episode on Mars Bonsai channel. Today I would like to talk about 4 most important tools for bonsai practitioner trying to grow deciduous bonsai. I'm looking at this group of trees I put together last year. I made a short video about it, you can check it here. I replanted it in March into this wooden box. The trees were wired. I saw a few days ago that wire needs to go off, so I start to remove the wire and I need to rewire parts of this group. When looking at this group, I was thinking about, in my opinion, very important lessons about important bonsai tools you need to have in your toolbox. Let me start with this, that initially when you are growing trees from seedlings or from very young plants, you are not so much interested in building ramification in initial stage of your work, but you would like to create as thick trunks as possible in the shortest amount of time. To achieve that, you need to grow a lot of foliage. This is reminding me what Walter Powell many times said. I heard him saying it, that what is the difference between bonsai garden or bonsai museum and the nursery. This is it. If you let the trees grow and they, for the most part of the growing season, look awkward, you are not trying to keep the trees in a shape which is presentable to public. You are not trying to keep the crowns in a shape, but you have different branches and leaders and sacrifice branches sticking from your compositions, which are there for the purpose. What is the purpose of such growing branches? We need to understand how the trees are growing, how they are fed, what is the purpose of foliar mass, and how the growth of the tree is affecting overall appearance of the plant. So let's go to 4 most important tools you need for growing deciduous bonsai. This is it. What you need is water, substrate, fertilizer, and sun. Solar energy, because the tree is basically solar plant. Maybe I can try to explain it to you on a little metaphor. Imagine each leaf on every branch is solar panel, which is absorbing the solar light. With the help of photosynthesis, it's creating sugars. The bigger the leaf, the more solar energy it's able to absorb. Imagine this is a solar panel, and this solar panel is connected to cable, which is connecting it to another part of the energy infrastructure. If the leaf is big enough and if it's facing in a good direction, you have plants and they are growing in all directions, but some of the leaves are exposed to more sun and some are in the shade. So those who are at the top of the plant and who are exposed to maximum amount of solar light are generating the maximum amount of energy, and the tree knows it. For this purpose, to transfer all this solar energy converted to sugars, it needs the stem to transport the energy down to the trunk and to the roots of the tree. For example, if you have stem like this, all the energy is flowing down, and more leaves you have on a stem, the thicker the stem needs to be, because you connect more solar panels to the grid, and the grid needs to sustain the flow of the energy. The tree knows that it has to thicken. By letting them grow, the tree knows that has a lot exposure to sunlight, and it's gaining a lot of energy which is flowing down to the tree, and tree is building new thickness. Basically, thickness of a tree is that all this energy needs to flow through somewhere. This is the thickness of a cable for these solar panels. But if you have bigger panels, more panels, it means branches on a tree. It needs to also add the capacity of the cable in the trunk. So imagine more leaders, more foliar mass is generating more energy, and the tree needs to adapt on the flow of this excess of energy. So it needs to gain the transportation capacity to the trunk. So the trunk is getting thicker and thicker due to demand of this foliar mass, which is producing so much energy. So the longer you keep these branches on a tree, the more energy they produce and the thicker the trunks are. If you want to build the thickness of the branches and of the trunk in initial phase of the development, you need to have a lot of foliar mass, which is creating this energy and it's transporting it down. Wherever it's, for example, at this place, the two branches are connecting and they are connected to another part, to apex of the trunk, and the trunk needs to transport all the energy created here and all the energy created here, so it needs to thicken. So the wire is starting to bite on this trunk because this year's growth, it's easily 40-50 centimeters long since 2 months. Big leaves, the maximum amount of light. How the tree knows it and what is the mechanism of the tree, how to properly operate this energy system. The apical buds of the tree are producing hormone which is called auxin. This auxin has many different functions, but let's focus only on those functions which are important for us now. This auxin, this hormone, the higher the bud on a tree, the more auxin it's produced in the bud. It's traveling down in the stem and it's telling to buds to not open. So it's suppressing the sleeping buds on the branches and on a trunk. It basically tells the plant that we are up here, we are the best position in orientation to sun energy, we are good, everything is okay, we are healthy, so you can sleep, you don't need to work. In initial phase of the tree development, we don't need to wake up all the buds on the trunk. It's not important for us. For us, it's only amount of energy. So this is playing into our advantage. We let the big parts of this energy infrastructures to grow. We let trees to become as big as possible, leaders to be as long as possible, and they are creating so much energy which is flowing into the trunk that every part of a tree which is accumulating these sugars and energy is contributing to thickening of the lower part of the plant. So it's getting thicker and thicker. Interesting thing is that when you are a beginner and you maybe don't have understanding of plant physiology, when you start to Google the bonsai trees and what to do, you find 9 of 10 videos you find are about pruning of the tree. But this is not so much important in initial phase of your work. The pruning of the tree, how to prune, what to leave, what to cut off, how to achieve ramification. The trick is not to prune. The trick is to let the tree grow. Let the tree have as much foliar mass as possible, to accumulate a lot of solar energy, convert it into as much sugar as possible, so you can thicken your trunks. Of course, the game is different for collected trees wherein the trunk is ready and it's different. I will talk about it in next episode. But when we are talking about any young plants, about any plants in development, and also even if your trunk is ready, still you need to work on the branches, and the similar system is working on branches. If you want to have thick branch, you cannot prune it all the time and keep the tree in a shape. It's not in your best interest. In your best interest is to let, if I want this branch to be really thick, I need to let this leader grow. Of course, the better is to wire it into this kind of position. Fertilizer, water and sunlight, these elements together with the substrate in which the tree is potted, is giving the tree energy to gain maximum possible diameter of your trunk. Back to my forest planting, if my target is to gain the thickest trunks possible, I will not remove this growth. I will leave scissors for later in the season when they will fulfill its function and they will store the energy into the trunks. After you finish your phase of building sufficient thickness of your trunk on your bonsai, then comes the phase of building ramification. You start to remove the branches, the tree will respond with back budding. Then when you will have sufficient ramification, the more ramification on a tree in smaller scale, in smaller container, means that the trees start to develop much smaller foliage. You don't have to be afraid about size of your foliage on a tree you are developing. It's in a nursery stage of your project. The leaves, the size of a foliage, size of a leaves is not important. The amount of branches in the lower parts of the trunks, it's not important at that moment. So you are just building the size of the trunks. Then in the next phase of development, it's followed with developing of ramification, and then when you achieve sufficient ramification, then naturally on many species like on this maple, the leaves will be much smaller. They will be like 1/10 of this size of a leaf. Don't be afraid that the foliage is too big, the leaves are too big. Don't be afraid that you don't have enough branches or that the branches will die. Anyway, you will need to grow new branches and create ramification, but it's in a later stage of development of your bonsai project. So pruning is important, but you need to understand that you have to have good growth if you want to prune something. So in case your growth is weak, you are not using enough fertilizer, you are not using enough water, your substrate is bad, the size of your planting container is too small, you are restricting the growth of the root of your trees. They are not growing fast enough, but you need fast growth for fast development of the tree. So your container needs to be of a proper size. Look at this crate, it's easily 45 by 60 centimeters. The fertilizer is already in the mix inside, so the tree has a lot of energy and it has a lot of food, it's exposed to maximum amount of sunlight and it's growing. It will give the trunks the possibility to thicken really fast. In one season, the difference will be visible. In 2-3 seasons in box like this tree will look completely different. For scissors to have work, you need to have proper growth. If you don't have a proper growth on your plant, you have a problem. So you need to establish your plants, you need to work on really good conditions and provide it with all which is necessary for the tree to prosper and to develop as fast as possible. With pruning tip of the branch later, you are removing source of auxin, which is not suppressing the buds anymore, and then the tree starts to ramify because there is no hormone which is saying to buds don't open. So this is important for development of a tree to understand that the hormones which are in tip of those leaders are responsible for suppressing of the buds which are lower on a tree. Be patient and don't cut off too early, and think about your trees as a power system which is generating energy in form of sugar and storing it in the trunks. Later you will have also chance to use your scissors. Hope it makes sense. And if you are new to the hobby, maybe you learned something new today. I will continue to work on my maple group. So this is it. In next episode I will talk about what is happening if we are removing the branches and how the trees are responding to removing the leaders and what the role auxin is playing in this process. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.